Hello there ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's Alexander Hilly123 here and it's time for a new video. And as you can see from the title, it is time today for my 4th pickups video on the channel, my vinyl pickups video. That is, showing 5 vinyl pickups every single video. And the last one was a good 4 or 5 months ago, I do believe, at least. Obviously, these don't exactly come cheap, they cost a good £20 a pop, the cheapest one. So it's taken a bit of time, but we're here again, and no doubt we will be in about another 4 to 5 months, because I'm really enjoying creating a collection of vinyls and music that I'm very passionate about. And I've got 5, obviously, like I said, to show you guys today, from the worlds of progressive rock, alternative rock, heavy metal, shoegaze, and electronic. And, you know, it's justified that I said it in that accent. Show you guys later, that's the last one I'll be showing. I'm not going to talk too in depth about these albums, it's just to show them off, speak a little bit about it. I might even also from now on put my favourite song from each album in the drop down box. That might be a good idea. And a little bit more information, like the year that it was made and a bit more about the band, something like that. Not too much, but just a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Anathema with Judgment. For years I pronounced this band's name wrong. Now I'm pronouncing it right. These guys are from Liverpool, and for me they're one of my favourite bands of all time. They started as a doom metal band, got a lot of influences from Pink Floyd and stirred it into the pop, mixed it up a bit, and around this time what you've got is clean vocals, it's progressive rock, but it's still very doomy, it's still very downtrodden and dark, and with lyrics of depression and a lot of other wonderful things like that. It is just an encapsulating album which just amazing. It's so good. The atmosphere, you want piano, you want atmosphere, you want heavy riffs, you want great Floydian solos. It's all here, ladies and gentlemen, with a gothic edge as well, very gothic. And this is my favourite Anathema album for sure. I think the one before this was Alternative 4, the one after this was A Natural Disaster, and then probably We're Here Because We're Here. The newer music isn't quite the same, it's a lot lighter, it's a lot more optimistic, I think the word would be, but they still kept that passion in the music, and they're still making good music today, although I do think they might be a bit past their best now, but still got a fantastic discography, which I'll always be listening to. But for me, the pacing in this album is just so perfect, and like I say, if you like alternative rock, if you like Floydian solos, if you like some heavy riffs, some great intertwining vocals between the two brothers of this band, Vincent and Danny Kavanagh. Some, like I said, piano, bass music as well, a few instrumental tracks here and there. This was the first album that the lady of the band, Lee Douglas, also performed in. She is incredible on Parisian Moonlight. And yeah, give this a listen. It's just absolutely fantastic, and it's near perfection. One of my favourite albums ever. I'm delighted I've got it on vinyl. I'm not going to show you guys the kind of insides of the vinyls, the inlays, if you will, if you want to call them that, because it's a bit of a hassle. I've got the old, plastic around, and I can't be bothered getting it out of there. But ladies and gentlemen, no introductions. I don't think this album really needs one. This is OK Computer by Radiohead, 1997, their 3rd album, for me, their best album, and definitely one of my favourite albums of all time, as cliche as it might be. Now, lyrically, musically, we know what this album's all about. It's about technology and the way the modern world is, making our lives a heck of a lot worse and harder. And my goodness, does that still make sense 22 years on since this album was made. And that's the thing, it will only make more sense as time goes on. I do think this is slightly better than Kid A, but Kid A I adore as well. But the Bends and Amnesiac, Hail to the Thief, In Rainbows, one of the best bands of all time. The B-sides are also incredible. I do think they're a bit past the best now, the last 2 albums, although they were quite different from each other, both the King of Limbs and, was it Moon-Shaped Pool? I wasn't too keen on either of them, to be honest with you. But this is just a true masterpiece. And this is the OK Not OK version, so it's big and fucking bulky. All the B-sides from that era are on there, ones of which some people only heard of from a few years back. But also tracks like Pearly, Palo Alto, and How I Made My Millions, which people have known since the album was made back in 1997. And yeah, I do love these B-sides. One of the main reasons I got it, like Lull. I'm in a lull. Seriously, listen to Lull by Radiohead. I might actually link it in the drop down box as the song from this album to link, because it's 2.5 minutes. It's easy to listen to. It's kind of a fun sounding song, but it's got this nice melody to it, but really dark lyrics, and it's just really good. I can see why they left it off OK Computer, because it's not quite as dark as the rest of the album is, but it's serious. But I really like it. But what more needs to be said about this album? If you've never listened to it, please do so. And if you don't like it, why the hell not? True masterpiece. I'm not going to speak any more of it because we don't need to. Here's another true masterpiece. And I think if you did a poll across the whole of the Metallica fan base, then I'm not 100% certain, but I'm confident that Master of Puppets would win out. Probably just ahead of Ride the Lightning. But for me, it's my second favourite Metallica album, which does beg the question, why did I get it on vinyl first? And although I do love this album and think, well, there's not a bad track on it, its pacing is nearly perfect, it's got more diversity within its music than my favourite Metallica album, why did I get it first? Probably because it's just so legendary. The album cover as well, with the hands in the corner just pulling the strings upon the graves, it's just fucking, I've got goosebumps, man, thinking about it. Unbelievable. This album is all about war and politicians and the common man or common people getting fucked over. Typical kind of lyrics that a lot of metal music used to have back in the day in the 70s, maybe not 70s, maybe like 80s and 90s. Well, a lot of the more American metal bands did, whereas with bands like Iron Maiden, they were singing about Alexander the Great and historical things and all sorts of shit. Sabbath was talking about smoking drugs and having fun, but obviously it was dark as shit and heavy as fuck as well with Sabbath because it was more of a doomy side. But I do think that like bands like Metallica and Slayer had a more, I won't say political edge because it wasn't political. I guess it was, but it wasn't really in-depth political beliefs that they were spewing and putting onto the fans. Do you know what I mean? So, meh. But yeah, my favourite Metallica album, I should say, is And Justice for All, which is after this album. Now, we know about the bass problems with that album, but it's so progressive and it's so heavy. Like, they went more progressive with that album in terms of the musical style, but it didn't take away the heaviness. It just added to it. The album's really long. The tracks are really long. There's not a bad track on it. It's absolutely furious. It most probably will be the next Metallica vinyl I get down the line in the future. But like I said, because of this album's perfect pacing, I thought I'd get it. You know, it starts out with Battery. That blistering beginning. Master of Puppets, blistering again, but slows it down in the middle and then finishes it off incredibly. Welcome Home Sanatorium, the more emotional piece of the album, if you will. The thing that should not be, that's doomy as fuck and gets your head rocking for sure. Disposable Heroes, that lyrically is probably the most political on the album. Leper Messiah, that's about religion, obviously. Any metal band's going to talk about religion. And I've fucked everything up in this world and I hate it myself because I'm an atheist. A peace-loving atheist, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about atheism on YouTube. What is it, 2010? But yeah, then the instrumental Orion, and then Damage Incorporated, which is probably the track which is just from start to finish thrash. You know what I mean? Some of these tracks, they're thrashy and they slow it down and then they incorporate other kinds of music. Not Damage Incorporated, it just goes for it and it's absolutely amazing. This is the last album with Cliff Burton on as well before he tragically passed away. And, you know, everyone's doing well on this album. People like to give Lars Ulrich shit, but he does his job. He can't be a bad drummer and be in a band like Metallica, for fuck's sake. He's a bit of an arsehole, but oh well. Some of the hate towards Metallica is way too, much in my opinion. I think the peak was probably And Justice for All, but I really like the Black Album, and then from there on in, I've never really loved anything they've done. Sentanga is a just absolute mess of an album. The best parts of Load and Reload, you've got a pretty decent rock album. And then Death Magnetic, I've not listened to it in years, the production's awful. And the last album, I could leave it, take it really. But ladies and gentlemen, what have we got now? We have the Electronique, like I mentioned before. It is none other than Daft Punk. Bloody hell, with Anathema, Metallica and Radiohead, there's not really much to smile about there. But with this album, there most certainly is. Also, just want to mention that for the 3 albums I've shown off so far, the years they were released: Anathema Judgment 1999, I think. OK Computer was 1997, and Master of Puppets was 85 or 86, I think. This was 2001, and this is one of my ultimate nostalgia albums, because I vividly remember One More Time and Digital Love when they were released back in 2001. I remember them being on the radio, I remember them being played so often, and in 2019 it's so strange for us to imagine actual good music. You can say it's subjective, but hey, I'm taking subjectivity away from it here, ladies and gentlemen, because modern music in the mainstream is just absolute fucking garbage. But in 2001, we could get music like as good as this in the mainstream, and a heck of a lot more as well. I think that late 90s, early 2000s was when there was just nothing left in the mainstream. By the time we hit the mid 2000s, very little to talk about, really. Mainstream music's just absolute garbage. But this is just such a great album. The first album, Homework, was inconsistent. It didn't really know what it was. Human After All, the album after this, was very repetitive beats all over the place. A few of the tracks worked, like Human After All and Robot Rock. Those tracks are fucking killer. But there's also a lot of just annoying tracks on that album. I don't know what they were doing. But The Return in 2013, what was it called now? Random Access Memories, was a more retro vibe. A lot of funk and disco to it, perhaps. And I really liked it. I thought initially, when I listened to it a few times, it was going to be as good as this. But it wasn't. And a few weaker tracks on there. But I think it's the second best thing Daft Punk have done. But I think this was just a moment in time when everything worked well for them. Aerodynamic. That solo, that fake guitar solo, oh my lord. Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, the original, the best, fuck you Kanye West. Hey, that rhymes. Crescendos. You know, the thing is with this album, the tracks that people haven't heard, if you've never listened to it, if you've just listened to the singles, for me, I'm not just saying it, I do believe the best songs on this album are the ones like Crescendos and High Life and Something About Us and Voyager, which has the best bass line ever. Face to Face, Short Circuit, Veridis Quo, the songs you've never heard, if you've never actually listened to this album, are the best on it, so please do give it a listen if you haven't. I am probably going to put down in the drop-down box, I should say, Voyager. It's an instrumental track, and that bass line, that outro, gives me goosebumps every time, ladies and gentlemen. This album, nearly 20 years old now, it's an album that makes me happy, and I think I'm due one of those. What an album. But ladies and gentlemen, this album, I don't know what it makes me feel. Does it make me feel happy? Or does it make me feel sad? Probably neither. Or both together. I don't know. It's just great music. That's all that matters. Look at these 5 lovely people. Especially her. What a beautiful woman she was. What a beautiful man that guy was as well. And still is. It's Slowdive and Souvlaki. Go on Wikipedia and find out why they called this album Souvlaki. It's very random. I'm not going to tell you guys. Just have a look on Wikipedia. But this is the Reading Band's second album, released in, I think, 93 or even early 1994. And it sees them... I can't remember what the first album was called. It was released in 91, and the album after this was released just a year after Souvlaki, I think. And those are much more challenging listens. So they made it so that it was more chorus verse chorus and allowed people to find it easy to get into the music, I'd say. But at the same time, there's still so much going on here. The vocals between the 2 lead singers, Neil Halstead, I think his name is, and Rachel Goswell, so good. And apparently the 2 of them were in a relationship just before this album was created. It all went Pete Tong, and then a lot of the lyrics that you find on the album and the music was inspired by that whilst they're still in this same band together. And you just can't imagine what that must have been like for the both of them. Absolutely amazing. And thankfully, it helped create one of the best albums of all time. This is shoegaze, you could call it dream pop. There are elements of rock here, the guitars are very loud for certain tracks, but people compare this to another vinyl album I might be getting soon, My Bloody Valentine, Loveless, which came out a few years before this. But yet and still, I always say they sound very different to each other. And I'm sure that when Slowdive were making this album, they were inspired by Loveless. How could you not be? That's an amazing album. but it has its own flavour, and I think this is easier to listen to. If I had to pick one of them, I'd have to really give it a lot of thought, because right now, off the top of my head, I wouldn't want to say one or the other. I really wouldn't. Not usually my kind of music, because I like music where I can understand the vocals. I mean, music isn't all about the vocals for me, but if I can't understand what a singer is saying, then it's possibly going to leave me cold and leave me thinking, like, what's going on here? Can I get into this? But it's the melody that gets you through, especially with certain tracks. Some Loveless, There's a Fly in My Bedroom on the telly. I'm going to need to get the fly spray. That's the worst thing about summer. But yeah, this album, Alison, Machine Gun, 40 Days. Oh, that song, I want to listen to that now. Sing, Here She Comes, Souvlaki Space Station, When the Sun Hits, All Together, Melon, Yellow and Dagger. The last three tracks there, All Together, Melon, Yellow and Dagger, leave it on a really, really melancholic vibe. I think the first side of this album hits you a little harder. There's a few tracks where you'll be bobbing your head, and I think Neil Halstead sings on most of them, and then Goswell comes in for the second half and mellows it all down. I think Brian Eno, the legend that is Brian Eno, helped them with two of the tracks on this album. They initially wanted him to produce the whole album for them, but he said no. But he did work on, I think it's Souvlaki Space Station, which is definitely one of the more obscure songs on the album. And you've got a nice mix on this album. You've got songs that are very easy on the ears, like Alison and Machine Gun, and Here She Comes. I think that might be the song that Eno worked on. But then you've got tracks like Melon Yellow and Souvlaki Space Station, which are a bit more, I guess, experimental, if you will. But I'm not sure whether I would like to have the other Slow Dive albums on vinyl, because although there are tracks that I like on those albums, there are also a good amount of tracks which, quite simply, I've never understood, I've never been able to get into. And I do believe that people are correct when they say that not all music you can get into immediately on first listen. But I think in time you should be getting something from the music, something should be coming through that allows you to like it and enjoy it. And with some of the tracks off the first and third Slow Dive album, it just isn't the case. And even the new album, well, the last album they did on the Comeback, which was like 3 years ago, they're solid, they're good, but there are also tracks that I can't get into, whereas this is just a full-blown masterpiece in my opinion. But ladies and gentlemen, there we have it, 5 vinyls from the years 94, 2001, 1998, 1985 and 97, rock, progressive rock, metal, shoegaze and electronic music. And there's one more there, which I'll be showing in the next video. That friggin' fly's going to get killed in a minute. And that vinyl is from the year 1991. So many of these vinyls are from the 90s, man. And I've already, in my head, got an idea of what my next 2 or 3 albums are going to be. There's another metal one coming. There's another hip-hop one coming. And then, after that, I'm not sure. But, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.